Did you get your Hideaway beach ticket yet?
Mm-hmm.
You got your drink package, of course?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have time to do any excursions. Do you have an excursion planned?
No. I know.
Because we're only in Nassau for like 6 hours.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like very brief.
Yeah.
I talked to Austin on Monday because he'll always call me when he's on his way home from work. And so I was like, well, how was work today? And he said, honestly, I didn't really get a lot done, but I did figure out what we're doing every minute of every day while we're on that ship. He said he just spent the entire day looking through literally everything that they had to offer. He's like, so here's plan Monday.
There you go.
I'm like, this is great. This is really great. I'm really happy that you got to have this. I said, but all these things that you listed, we're probably going to get to do about 20% of them, so just go ahead and lock that in.
Because did he have the template of our schedule with everything else?
Yeah, well, he was like, the Rolex raffle and all this kind of stuff, which I'm like, that's great. Take full advantage of the perks, really. But also, like, once you get on the ship and you're kind of in it, like, you just want to relax.
Just want to just go with the flow.
I told him, I said, we can do the yoga in the mornings. Like, that's fine. I can get up for that. But, you know.
If you know the hack about.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Do you know the hack about.
Just don't forget to press records.
Having go into the main dining to have your breakfast?
Yes.
Or Johnny Rockets.
Okay. All right. You ready? We'll
I'm ready.
after.
Yeah, sure.
All right. You guys can roll whenever.
It's the intel about the next generation of Bulldogs. This is Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger.
Let's go, I'm a Bulldog.
Hello, Dog Nation, and welcome into Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. I'm Kaylee Mansell with Dog Nation recruiting insider Jeff Sentell, who's got his nice Hawaiian shirt on today. Usually we talk about some sort of topic off the top, but we just have so much to get to, so we're going to hit on a quick few things here in the open, and we're going to do it quick five style. As always, have to put our fives up. Let's go ahead and start with a quarterback who maybe hinted something our way over the weekend. Of course, it's the five-star quarterback, Jared Curtis, who missed out on G-Day because it was his last prom. These are pictures that he posted that my good friend Jeff Sentell found. Nice car. His date's in red. He's got a red tie. It's a red car. And maybe if you're a Georgia fan, you take away some meaning from this. But I told Jeff after the Justice Terry commitment, seeing the black suit with the red lining, and he still went to Texas, I'm not buying it.
Funny how you said I'm not buying it. Kaylee's trying to be clever with that one right there. But Kaylee, I will say this is a colorful way to describe the latest chapter in the Jared Curtis recruitment. I am actually told that the Georgia staff got a chuckle out of seeing these colors. They definitely approved. Sources say, I don't know if the Team Oregon and the Ducks were quite happy with this. But Kaylee, obviously this is circumstantial. But wearing all that black and red and the red car, I feel like it's a little bit more than the norm here a little bit. And, listen, I still have people in my ears saying, hey, man, this is going to happen. The Dogs are going to get Curtis. They're going to meet the number. They're going to match the bid, which is very interesting. But I will say this, Dog Nation, if you sit there with the skeptical emoji like doubting Mansell over here, I'm going to tell you this. Take how you feel right now. Rewind your own personal emotional history. How would you have felt if the car was, I don't know, chrome and gold or chrome and green? And how would you feel if he was wearing maybe a black suit with like a green tie with gold accents, chrome accents? Just compare the feelings. I have to say this is at least, is it nothing? Probably not nothing. Is it something substantial? I wouldn't say it's substantial.
I wouldn't call those colors anything other than bad taste. We're still not sure where the Jared Curtis recruitment is going to lead, but for one Georgia commit, we know that he's locked down, and that's Seven Cloud, the three-star defensive lineman. He posted this on social media, "Go Dogs, #recruitment closed." It's crazy that we are even in an era where you have to put out to the world that your recruitment is closed. But if you're a Dogs fan, you've got a lot of security in 7 Cloud now, and you know you've got a lockdown commit in the class of 2026.
Yeah, this is what I'm going to translate a little bit between the lines here, Kaylee, is obviously he has a great sentimental story about why he chose Georgia. His, members of his family that are no longer with us, they've made like their dream was to see him play for Georgia. He was a 2023 Georgia commit. Life happened. He dropped out of high school. He had to go to junior college. He missed a year because of a knee injury. But to me, this says not only, this feels like, I would say that negotiations were closed, handshakes were met. And again, I say this a lot, Kaylee. I can't think of, there's probably not 5 other recruits in this class of 2026 more important than 7 Cloud, simply because he's going to be a senior next year, at least a senior in age. And that's going to mean he's a grown man ready to jump into the defensive line. Oh, and by the way, he's the #1 defensive tackle in JUCO ball and also the #1 overall prospect in JUCO ball. And he certainly looks good going through spring drills right now.
So on last week's show, we provided a full visitors list for G-Day, and you said 2 of the most important guys on that list were Mark Bowman, the 5-star tight end, and then Vance Spafford, who's already a Georgia commit. And a lot of the decision of if they're going to be there is going to depend on one another. How did that visit go for those 2?
Yeah, I think we're going to get really into the weeds in a minute, because we're going to have another segment of the show where we're really going to dial in what we thought the Spafford visit and also the Bowman visit meant. But I thought it was a very strong visit from what I've heard. Bowman was there. Georgia brought like a kind of a full court press. You see Lincoln Keys there in the background. You see Pierce Sperling III as well. I think Bowman has always wanted to be a Dog. I think he sees himself following the same path that Brock Bowers has. I know he has at least had conversations with Brock about what it would be like at Georgia. He got to watch Georgia practice. That was invaluable. Kaylee, I think that visit did what it needed to do in terms of, I think it kind of solidified things a little bit with him in Georgia. Now, of course, Oregon's there, Texas is there, but the main thing, like I'm glad you hit on, and as you open this Quick 5 segment, is him and Spafford. They're pals, they're boys, and you want to play ball with your boys, and I think those boys want to play ball together.
All right, so one recruit that we've been talking a lot about over the last couple months is the 5-star offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell, who released that great graphic that had the Waffle House kind of a logo.
Yeah.
But now he's put out there that he's going to be making his decision April 30th. Do you have any Sentell's intel on where you think this might be headed?
Yeah, this is one of those. Obviously, Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. That's the famed NFL agent. I believe the HBO series Ballers was kind of framed after him a little bit. A very aggressive negotiator in the football realm. Kaylee, I don't know if the Dogs are going to win this one anymore, especially with the quick move-up date. He's been to Miami. He's going to take an official visit to Oregon right before that decision. So maybe we needed to check Jackson Cantwell's IG feed to see if he's wearing a green tux with maybe a yellow bow tie or whatever. But that one, I don't know if the Dogs really going to come out and win that one right now.
So we talked about 7 Cloud earlier shutting down his recruitment. It looks like there may be another Dog commit in the class of 2026 who's also just about ready to do that, and that's going to be the 4-star safety Zach Fort. I think last week when we talked about the John Tavius Wyman flip, you've got to expect some of those, but that's also probably putting more pressure on the guys who are committed to shut down their recruitment. So it looks like Zach Fort may be the next.
Yeah, we spoke to him after G-Day, Kaylee, and I'm going to tell you, I got Nakobe Dean, Jalen Walker, Malachi Starks vibes off talking to Zach Fort. Fort is, I love this part of his story, Kaylee. He will be a 4-year team captain at IMG Academy this fall. Kaylee, that doesn't happen. He stands to be at least the 16th ascender that will go on to play at the University of Georgia. Kaylee, he told me he is 100,000% committed, and I know that people get a little shady when they see all.
Is it 1,000, 100,000, 1,000,000?
100,000%. I think he would name another one if he wanted to. I really like this prospect because he gets it. Like I tell you, I get those team captain vibes at Georgia off of him. Makes a lot of plays, Kaylee. He went around on his unofficial visit to Georgia, Kaylee, with a notebook, and he's taking notes in the middle of Georgia's meetings. He has notes about what he wants to ask Kirby. And he told me, and this is such a great part of the Fort story, he says, I said, how does Georgia see you? And he says, 2 players, Javon Bullard and Dan Jackson. And he's like, and those are my favorite players. And I was like, all right, Huckleberry. Had to Val Kilmer there. I said, Huckleberry, what about why? And he says, I got it for you, man. Georgia Tech, Dan Jackson, the hit, the fumble, and 15 million overtimes. And then I'm like, Javon Bullard. And then he said, then Javon Bullard, 2022 Ohio State, red zone. Javon Bullard, all you got to say, you really like the way this young man already takes his Georgia Bulldogness very seriously. Yes, folks, I did invent a word, Georgia Bulldogness, very seriously.
That kind of does sound like a very Malachi Starks-esque type player, just with how deep he is into the Georgia culture. So, all right. That's going to wrap up Quick 5. Here's what we've got going on the rest of today's show. We're going to get a chance to hear from Georgia's latest commit that happened right before G-Day on Saturday. We've got a Dog Nation conversation with the safety Keelan Jones. Then we are bringing back the Dogometer, and we're going to do it with the visitors from this past G-Day. Where do things stand? Are they on the bottom of the scale or the top of the scale? Then we'll continue on doing our Dog Nation Next Generation series, where we talk about all the talent that's a part of the 2025 class, and of course with his tremendous G-Day performance, got to put Dominick Kelly in that mix. And then Sentell's mail is going to be done a little bit differently today, because I have a question for Jeff Sentell based on something that I saw over the weekend. So I'm curious to see what he has to say. But let's go ahead and start with Keelan Jones. So we found out about an hour before G-Day that Georgia had picked up another commit. It's going to be an in-state safety, 3-star safety, Keelan Jones. Honestly, I feel like we should just go ahead and get to it. Dog fans, let's go ahead and hear from Georgia's latest commit, Keelan Jones.
Tell me about the best play on your highlight tape. Like be John Madden with it, you know, or like be Tony Romo with it or something.
All right, I think my favorite play was probably my hit against Riverwood. It was like early in the game. It was a read option. Quarterback pulled it down the middle, and he didn't even see me coming. I smacked him. That was probably my favorite play.
Smacked him, huh?
Yeah.
So your favorite plays are smacking people, right?
Yeah.
Pick six or smacking somebody. What would you rather have? Maybe a pick six.
Because my pick six was my first clip of my film, but that was my first clip. My favorite one was probably the hit.
What's your dream? Everybody's got a dream. What's that dream for you?
My dream is just to make my mom proud and take football as far as I can.
What's your mother's name?
Kelly.
Kelly?
Kelly Stoudemire.
Stoudemire. And why? Was she the one that was always washing your jersey, getting you to practice, telling you to be tough, all that stuff?
She's been sitting there four quarters. No matter how hot it was, cold, rain, thunderstorms, she'll always be there. Always got the stains on my jerseys. No matter who missed the game, she was always there.
And how quickly have all these offers popped up? Can you describe it? Like, is it when the junior tape goes out, all of a sudden everybody offers?
It was kind of like people were seeing the tape like mid-season, after the season. They were just kind of waiting for somebody to take the chance. And then when Arizona State offered on January 8th when we came back from Christmas break, it was kind of just nonstop from then to now.
How many offers did you have on January 1st?
0.
How many offers do you have now?
28, I think.
28. What did they see? Did you feel like you were unleashed, I guess, a little bit?
I feel like I really I think I got a lot better through every game of the season. You could see that on the film from the first game to the last game. It was just a lot of improvement because we had stayed working, like, regardless of how much I was playing in sophomore year or anything. Just try to keep my head down and keep moving until somebody took that chance on me and then everybody else started noticing.
Did you grow up a fan of any certain school? Did you have, like, maybe your family moved here from Chicago or anything like that?
No, we've been here my whole life. My mom went to Georgia. So, like, my mom and my grandma both went to Sprayberry here, and my mom went to Georgia, so they're all Georgia fans and stuff. So that's kind of what I grew up on.
What does mom say about this offer? Did she bark at you or something like that when you got that one?
She cried almost every offer when I told her, but that one definitely meant something deeper to her because, you know, she went there, so I guess that was kind of another dream for her because we had been talking about that with my whole family. They all say I'm going to Georgia since I was 3 years old, so it was definitely big for her too.
How did they tell you? Did Coach tell you, or did T-Rob tell you, or like how did they deliver the offer that mattered a lot here?
It was Coach T-Rob, and along with like most of my other offers, none of these coaches knew who I was by name at all when they came in. They came for, other players on the team, and everything, and then a coach would show them my film, and they pretty much had no doubt and offered on the spot like that.
On the spot offers, huh?
Yeah.
What does Georgia want? Why did Georgia offer you? What did they see in your game that they value?
Yesterday, Coach Stack had told me that they like how I just put my nose on the ball and can and really come down and hit, and just versatility really for my position.
Coach Thacker, the new Nichols coach, I guess?
Yes, sir.
Do they see you as a nickel corner, or what do they see you as?
Really just like trying to see who I grow into, like what position I grow into, but probably more of a safety as of right now.
Height, weight, what are you, 6'1"?
About 6'1", 190.
190?
Sure.
Is that what you played at last year?
I was about like probably 183 or so. Yeah.
Wow. How do you put this into words, man? That, like literally in 3 months, 2 months, all your dreams are opening up. Like how do you describe this to somebody?
It's just surreal. Like it still hasn't even really processed that none of this is real, because obviously this has been what I worked on for the past however many years of my life, and it all came so fast. It was just a blessing.
So, okay, hold on. 0 offers on January 1st to now having well over 20, and the fact that his mom went to Georgia, grew up a Georgia fan his entire life. Mm-hmm. I mean, what an amazing story, but apart from all those things, like what stands out about his commitment as a whole to you?
I just think he's a very mature kid, Kaylee. He didn't even play till his junior year, and I asked him about it, and he was like a little too honest with me, and he said, well, because there was a senior in front of me, and I thought maybe I was a little bit better, but that's how it goes. I had to just put my head down and work and wait, and finally it was my turn, and then he started playing. And Kaylee, another great part about this is he was on a secondary last year with Jordan Edmonds, the 5-star corner, this class, committed to Alabama, and then also Mark Manfred, who signed with Missouri, who's already there. So he had 2 SEC guys in his secondary. He winds up being the 3rd, and I love it how he just said, just smack people. I just love smacking people. Very big. He's one of those guys that the Sprayberry staff tells me he shows up, sits in the front row of every meeting. He puts his phone away. He doesn't get distracted. Nobody has to tell him to put your phone down. Also plays basketball, Kaylee. And he plays basketball, and his coach was like, hey, you got a basketball game today. You don't have to lift. Don't want to mess up your shot. He's like, no, coach. I know what my goals are. I know where I'm going. I know where I need to be. I need to lift every day. Love it. I mean, this guy, it's almost like fire, passion, and energy, the prescription from Kirby. This guy's got it, and also he's just wired the right way.
So what does this commitment say about how Georgia's going to build its classes in the future?
Yeah, I like that question a lot, Kaylee. Good question. I think what it is when you have a guy that fits the physical profile, 6 feet, maybe 6'1", 190, very fast, very strong, worker, ball skills. He takes all advanced classes. He's got A's and B's. He's a Georgia legacy. Why not? Mm-hmm. Why not? Why do you need to wait? Because these are guys that you need to get. If you need 28 people in your class, you got to take the layup. I mean, this is kind of like a 3-foot putt for Georgia. Fits the profile, smart, mature, loves the dogs, and why not? Why not just go ahead and lock him down, commit him down, and everything else? Because if you're building a class, it's going to get harder and harder to find these guys. And I do think, Kaylee, the Georgia process can make any 3-star play like an all-SEC player and get drafted.
Yeah, well, when you got a coach like Kirby Smart, you can take a player like that and develop him how you want. So in just a minute, the return of the Dogometer, it is coming. But first, we want to remind you that here on Before the Hedges, we are brought to you by Kroger. Next big thing is Easter this Sunday. You need Easter candy. You need stuff for your Easter feast. Look no further than Kroger. You can either visit your local Kroger or go to kroger.com/Easter to get all those last-minute things you need for whether it's your Easter egg hunt or the best feast after church. Make sure to check out your local Kroger or go to kroger.com/Easter for more. It has been a very long time coming that we finally got the opportunity to do this, but it's time to bring back the Dogometer. So, for those who have not seen this before, start.
Oh, my.
What is the dogometer, Jeff?
So, people have crystal balls, people have, picks, and this is just going to the doctor, taking the temperature. The dogometer is going to tell us whether they're closer to being a dog, farther away to be a dog. It's just a current snapshot of where we think these talented players' chances are of committing to the G and signing with the G.
So there's 4 different categories, starting with basically not a dog at all. That's a Chihuahua. Then you've got the Schnauzer. Then you've got the Black Lab, and then you've got the full-on Dog Nation Georgia Bulldog. And we're going to do this with some of the top G-Day visitors from last weekend. So we're going to go ahead and start with the tight end, Mark Bowman, one of Georgia's top priorities for this year. Let's find out where he stands on the dogometer. Okay, so he's 1 spot away, which I don't know how much that says because I feel like he's been 1 spot away from a really long time. How did you come to this conclusion, and what does Georgia have to do to get him to be full Bulldog status?
Yeah, we don't have the technology yet, Kaylee, to put that dogometer like right there touching the red. But I think he's right on the verge, right on the touch in the red. You also hear that Mark Bowman is going to make his decision not after his football season, maybe not even before his football season, but maybe sometime June, July. I think that visit went well. I think it was a multi-day visit. I think the Thursday practice meant a lot. And Kaylee, I feel like we've been talking about him for 3 years. But number 19, they call him Baby Brock. Nate Frazier told me about that many moons ago when he was still being a recruit. They love him. He was initially a 2026. He reclassified down to 2027, and then he classed back up this spring, early this winter, because he's ready to play. Kaylee, he's 6'5". Route tree looks great. I mean, physical. There's a case that can be made, Kaylee, that he is the most polished offensive player that Georgia is recruiting, maybe even the best offensive skill guy that Georgia is recruiting. Mark Bowman getting a little bit closer, Kaylee. If I had the technology and the wherewithal to get that thing right on the red, that's where I think he would be right now.
Well, as we mentioned off the top of the show, him and Vance Spafford are really good friends, and it looks like that the decisions that they make will weigh a lot on each other. And you may ask, why are we doing Vance Spafford if he's already a commit? Well, there have been other schools that have come in as of late, tried to swipe him from underneath. So let's just get some reassurance and see where Vance Spafford stands in the dogometer. Okay, if you're a Georgia fan, this makes you feel good because USC was trying to come in last minute, but maybe he just needed a visit to Athens on G-Day to make him feel like he was in the right place. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, first of all, there have been innuendo and rumors about, let me just use a Brandon Adamsism, online chatter.
Online chatter.
The online chatter was chattering about Washington, about USC. He just saw Miami. You know what that means when you go see Miami? Kind of the opposite of maybe Yellowstone and going to the train stations. Kind of maybe like going to the ATM. But he just visited Georgia again. And the silliest things, Kaylee, they were in the stands, and Spafford was recording Bowman. And I guess it was for somebody's snap or it was for somebody's IG, and he was doing his own commentary. The boys were cutting it up and laughing the whole time. And I know this, those two dudes are having a great time. I think they will play together in college. I think the stronger you can make the Vance Spafford commitment, the more likely Mark Bowman will be a dog as well. You also kind of hear things, Kaylee. You hear that maybe USC's not trying as hard. Maybe Washington might be the biggest threat to Georgia right now, along with Miami as well. But I don't even know if Miami has Spafford as one of their high-dollar targets, high-value targets. Excuse me, Freudian slip there.
You know, see, Miami doesn't have a lot of targets for Carson Beck to throw to this year after we find out that a certain wide receiver was going to be leaving. Anyway, don't need to get into that. Let's talk about Caden Prothrope, the 5-star tight end, wide receiver, can do just a little bit of everything. He was also one of the visitors. He's another in-state guy that Georgia's been after really hard. Let's see where he stands on the dogometer. I mean, this is really, if you're not going to be full-on dog, this is the category that you want to be in. What did you hear about how his visit went?
I loved it. Loved watching him practice. You know, Kaylee, he was one of those guys that was on the sidelines observing everything, kind of soaking it all in. And it's kind of funny. Whenever you see Prothrow now, it's like I don't even have to look. I look to the sky when I'm looking for Prothrow. You know, like sometimes you're looking and you try to look shoulder level. I just come down from the sun, and like Prothrow is like the first head I see because he's head and shoulders above everybody else. Again, one of these things, Kaylee, if I had to say signing day was tomorrow, I think Georgia would get both Prothrow and Mark Bowman the way things are trending right now. And I think the thing that makes it kind of unique here is that you saw he was lined up out wide right there. But I feel like Prothrow will be an offensive athlete, more of a wide receiver than a tight end. So I think that bodes well for Georgia trying to squeeze all these guys in the class.
Someone that we talked about at the beginning of the show was the 5-star offensive tackle, Jackson Cantwell, which he's going to be making his decision soon. So I feel like whatever this says is going to say a lot about what you think he's going to do. So let's find out where he stands on the dogometer. Our first schnauzer. So I guess that means you have a pretty good inkling that it's not Georgia. But more importantly, why? Like, why wouldn't it be Georgia? Is it strictly a money thing, or has he just been prioritized by someone else harder?
Well, first of all, everybody loves a comeback story, so we hold the reserve for that. Again, we feel this is a snapshot in time right now, but I do think it's eerily odd that the first two stations on the dogometer are green and kind of lime green, because that kind of means Oregon's colors in a lot of cases right there. But Kaylee, I think it is very interesting. You don't need to be on a detective show to realize that Jackson Cantwell tweets out, "Oh, looks like I'm making my decision a lot sooner than I ever thought I was," and then he reschedules an Oregon official visit right before his decision date on April the 30th. He's not likely to see Georgia until then, at all until then. And Kaylee, he also felt so good about Georgia last year that he didn't give Georgia a visit in January. He didn't give Georgia one of these early 2025 visits. So to me, I think Georgia at one time was going to win this thing. I thought for a while Georgia was going to win this thing, but you have the combination of all these kind of details and data points, also with the fact that, hey, we live in an NIL culture, we live in a revenue sharing, House revenue settlement culture right now, and it says a lot to me that Cantwell hasn't seen Georgia in a while, but it's just kind of funny, Kaylee. This is just the world we live in. He saw Miami recently. He saw Oregon. He's going to go see Oregon before his decision is made, so that doesn't really look as well for the Dogs. And it's kind of interesting, Kaylee, because I think if this was 2019, 2022, 2023, I think Jackson Cantwell would already be committed to Georgia.
So the last two are perhaps the most interesting ones because they're kind of offsetting of each other. Let's start with Jared Curtis, who was not a GA visitor. He had prom. But his recruitment is getting closer and closer and closer, and part of you feels like you would have a better idea of what's happening, but I feel like the closer we get to it, the less sure I am about anything. So let's go ahead and find out where Jared Curtis lies on the dogometer. Could it be better? Yes. Could it be worse? Also yes.
Yeah, I know I'm going to get some comments which are reserved, but this was well thought out. We had staff meeting about staff. We talked to focus group and research. No, we actually didn't. But Kaylee, we've called it a soap opera. I think Georgia's chances continue to get better for Jared Curtis. I think that they will wind up with either Jared Curtis or Bo Bentley in this class, but the stuff you continue to hear, it kind of makes me want to reevaluate the way I think. Like, do I feel Georgia has the spend or the need to spend for a quarterback like this? I don't think so, but I think Georgia has kind of figured out that this is the guy they want. Perhaps, Kaylee, one could, if they really wanted to pop the hood on my thinking here, I would say that the reason why Georgia's chances may be ebbing a little bit with a Jackson Cantwell is because they're increasing with a Jared Curtis, because I think one of those two guys is going to get a deal that will satisfy their reputation. Their representation, not reputation. Had a little slip there on the 5-yard line, but Curtis, I think, is a guy that can be a number 1 overall pick coming out of Georgia the same way Matthew Stafford was. And for the longest time, he has loved Georgia. Georgia was his initial pick. Georgia was the runaway leader. And then he had the decommitment and had to look at everything else. And I also just get the feeling that, I don't know whether this is new or I've always felt this way, but I get the feeling that top dollar is not exactly what Jared Curtis is looking for. Jared Curtis is looking for NFL development.
Well, if it's not Curtis, then perhaps it's going to be the next guy, which is Bo Bentley, who's recently really popped up onto our radar, and it feels like each week we get a little bit closer to figuring out what he's all about. So let's find out where he stands on the dogometer. So we have them both as Black Lab. What does that say if they're sitting in the exact same spot?
Because I kind of feel it will be one or the other. I don't even know if it's 1A or 1B, but I think Georgia will. This is what I honestly think. I think Georgia has a championship-level quarterback in either Jared Curtis or Bo Bentley. I really feel that way, and I think both of them have strong opinions about the Dogs and the way they play, the way they practice, what stands out to them about the program. Kaylee, we continue to say this over and over, but I mean, perhaps it's a headline for a Dog Nation story, but the number one thing that Georgia has to offer these days are their practices. And Kirby Smart on the mic just roasting these players because they know if he's roasting you, he sees a lot of great things in you. Mm-hmm. And I think Georgia sees a lot of great things in Bobo Bentley, as we discussed last week on our show, and also Jared Curtis. I think the only way the Georgia people will lose at quarterback this year is if they end up with neither Bentley or Curtis in the signing class, because I think you can win with either one of these guys. And I'll tell you what, if Curtis doesn't go the Dogs' way on May the 5th, May the 6th, and everybody has a interesting Cinco de Mayo, we'll have another Dog Nation. We'll have another Before the Hedges dogometer with Bo Bentley.
So it sounds like a lot of the guys that we just talked about had a great G-Day visit. And in honor of G-Day, our Next Generation series today has to revolve around a freshman who had a standout G-Day performance with our Dog Nation Next Generation. So typically when Jeff and I come together to decide each week who it's going to be, we've already got some sort of plan or we're laying it out in some sort of way. But I think it's funny, last week I asked you, was there any freshman that maybe we hadn't talked about enough who could stand out on G-Day? Little did we know, it was going to be Dominick Kelly, the 4-star cornerback who reclassified from 2026 to 2025 out of Bradenton, Florida, went to IMG, 6'1", 190. He had an interception that he ran back for 31 yards and a major pass breakup. It doesn't take much to identify what made him stand out amongst the rest.
Yeah, so IMG Academy, that's another guy that the Ascenders sent to Athens. And Kaylee, they just come very wired for business. They're like kind of all about business. At one point, Dominick Kelly was committed to USC. I think that was largely tied in with Dante Williams and Coach Dante and their relationship there. Soon after, when Coach Dante took the Georgia job, you kind of heard about Dominick. You kind of heard about that connection there, and it wasn't long. I think he committed to Georgia, I believe, in late June of last cycle. And this was a guy that continues to impress you. Every interaction I had with him was like super mature kid. That guy's going to do big things, and he did so already at G-Day. You know, the mental note I had, like I make notes every time I talk to a kid for the first time, and sometimes they come up in stories, sometimes they don't. But Kelly was, I remember my notes here for Kelly because I just looked at him before we taped today. And Kelly was about, we'll play right away, a typical Georgia guy, gets the UGA standard and mentality. Kind of that's what I was thinking. And Kaylee, he even told me back in October of last year that he was going to reclass after his official visit for the Tennessee game. So he was just ready to get to Georgia, ready to get to play. And so, again, everybody liked number 24, although it took him a while to say, hold on, is that Malachi Starks there? Who's that? But made some plays. I thought he looked good in coverage as well. Georgia's got a lot of great corners, but I think they got another great one now in Dominick Kelly.
Well, as you mentioned, he initially was a USC commit, then decides to go to Georgia. So let's hear from Dominick Kelly himself on why he chose Georgia.
Plug with Georgia, was it a little bit of Coach Dante? Was it the reputation of the program? Like, what was the reason why you flipped to Georgia?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think, like you spoke on, just, the relationship I have with Dante, he's a great coach. We're really close. And then also, the reputation of the program of, in my opinion, there's no better place for a DB to go right now. You have, you're constantly spitting out DBs at the highest level. You can see the alumni that are in the NFL right now, not to mention playing in the best conference in all of football and having the opportunity to compete for national championships. It's something I really couldn't pass up. It's just being somewhere that has that pedigree of developing DBs to play at the next level and playing at a high level while you're in college.
Dominick, let me tell you what really impresses me about you, because I see every year, every cycle, guys that are committed, they're at the game, either the game's out of hand or halftime happens, and guys will go into that recruiting lounge and they'll stay in the AC and they'll watch games and they'll eat. I've noticed you 2 straight weeks where you're like, it looks like to me, tell me how you're thinking, but like, dude, there's a ball game right in front of my nose. I'm going to get as close to the field as I can and soak up everything. Is that what I'm seeing you're doing? I mean, that you're there for business as much as it is to hang out, it looks like.
1,000%. I'm a football junkie, so anytime I'm able to see something at that high of a level, I'm not just there for the ambiance of it. I really want to see the football. I want to see what's going on. And, I'm constantly studying the game. So whenever I have an opportunity to watch it and soak up some information, I want to. So that's why you see me, kind of front and center, just because, like I said, I want to see the game. I want to see some things that, other people might not see just from watching on TV. And, I really value that experience. So I'm really there to watch the game, not just so much as a recruit.
You know what's funny? The guys that do what you do end up being successful at Georgia, but also playing faster because you take it seriously. Like, you're there for the ball. And I don't know if everybody gets that. Does Georgia see you corner, safety, star? Like, what's the fit there? Is it all around, or what do you think?
I mean, for me personally, I'm willing to play wherever any coach wants me to play, however I fit best in the secondary, wherever they feel. But from what I've only spoken to Dante and what I've gotten message from the staff, just corner. Yes, sir.
You know what sticks out the most to me? That part right there at the end. Him saying, I'll play wherever they want me to play. Because it feels like lately guys will only go to a school now if they can play the position that they want to play, even if it's not the one that we view in our minds as best at. So that shows you that's a true team player right there, which is becoming more and more rare with each class.
I wish you guys could see behind the mic, behind the scenes cam while we're watching the playback of the video. You got Miss Kaylee over here, and she looks like that Shannon Sharp meme on social media. She's got that right up there. She's nodding along. That was a Kaylee clip right there that she really liked. And Kaylee, it's funny you say that. Georgia has a very popular director of recruiting, Coach Coop, on social media, David Cooper. And he refers to a lot of the guys at Georgia that get it, that understand, calls them young kings. I think Dominick Kelly is one of those young kings that Coach Coop talks about a lot. Elite, want to play with elite, just everything about that interview. And folks, we adhering to all University of Georgia media rules. That was actually an interview with Dominick Kelly from last fall, from last October, November, I believe. Obviously, we can't talk to freshmen right now, but good little window into Dominick Kelly. You want to know why he's making plays on G-Day, in his very first G-Day, when he was supposed to be right now a junior in high school, getting ready to try on boutonnieres and corsages for his prom. Dominick Kelly, like I said earlier, there's DeMello Jones, there's Ellis Robinson, there's Dalen Everett, there's Daniel Harris, a lot of great corners at Georgia. Dominick Kelly is going to be another great one.
So that's our Next Generation series, all about Dominick Kelly. I've kept Jeff waiting. He's been shaking a little bit, nervous for this. I have a question for you, and I don't know how this ties back into Georgia, but I saw this weekend, we had talked about potential number 2 quarterbacks if Jared Curtis doesn't go to Georgia. And one guy that we talked about for a while was Landon Duckworth, who took a step back from Georgia because he said that Ole Miss was his front runner. And then I saw that Ole Miss took a 2026 quarterback over the weekend that was not Landon Duckworth. So does that put him sort of back into the mix with the other Georgia quarterbacks, or is there another school that is going after him?
So you're talking about the Ferris State quarterback? Are you talking about the transfer?
No, they took a 2026 guy over the weekend too.
Oh, wow. So they're getting very busy right there. I still feel like Landon has been prioritized by Ole Miss enough. And I think this is a situation, Kaylee, where they're going to need two because they took everybody remembers the quarterback that roasted Georgia when Jackson Dart went out last year in the Ole Miss game. He's back. He's a South Florida kid. And then they've also got, they brought in a quarterback from Ferris State. That's in Michigan. They were the D2 national champions. He apparently threw for 3,000 yards and ran for 1,000 with 25 touchdowns. So Ole Miss needed to fortify not only the present-day roster, but also the latter future roster with Landon Duckworth. I mean, everything that Duckworth has told me, they're prioritizing him. They're making him feel like a priority.
Yeah, but why would they bring in a 2026 commit? I'm not talking about the transfer. Why would they want to bring in two quarterbacks in the 2026 class if they just brought in somebody from the portal and have Austin Simmons?
Well, because Simmons is likely to go pro after this year, perhaps, and then also the other guy potentially would be as well.
Okay, that makes sense.
Out of eligibility. Lest we know, I'm sure Coach Kiffin has already fully briefed Landon Duckworth on everything they need to know about what's going on there. Obviously, also, funny that you mentioned it, though, I'd watch South Carolina there as well with Duckworth because that was the school he was initially committed to, and he kind of decommitted when they brought in Air Noland out of the transfer portal. So now he's also planning to get back to South Carolina as well. So, again, I think if Georgia wanted to get in the mix there with Duckworth and let's say somehow, and this will be some pearls clutch, Kaylee, if Georgia goes 0 for 2 on Bentley and Curtis, that's the only way I think they get into the mix with Duckworth going forward.
Also random, but while we're already here, did you see where Lane Kiffin went on Theo Vaughn, the podcast?
I did not.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, number one, how do you have time for that? You need to be at practice. And number two, he talked about the SEC coaches and the text threads that they have. And I guarantee you after his appearance on that show, he will no longer be involved in these text threads. He may have said a little bit too much. So if you haven't seen it.
Maybe those text threads are going to be incredibly vanilla going forward.
Yeah, but definitely a few mentions of Kirby Smart in there. So go check that out if you haven't already. It was fascinating to hear. Okay, now we're going to do a class breakdown. We've got another name added this week, so we got to get to it. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. Remains the same. You got the 4-star tight end Lincoln Keys, who was at G-Day on Saturday, as well as Vance Spafford, and then 3-star wide receiver out of Cartersville High School, Brady Marchese. Then we'll move to the defensive side of the ball where, we have a new name. Keelan Jones gets added to the group along with Zach Fort and the 3-star defensive lineman, Seven Cloud. It looks like just about all the defense is ready to shut down their recruitment, so that's a good place to be if you're the Dogs. Then we move on to our snapshot. These numbers have changed because now you have 6 commits, 2 of them being in-state, which means that the state with the most commits is the state of Georgia, and their class rank is at number 24. They were at 26 last week, so they move up in the ranks. Now we'll move to our top targets. Not many changes this week, but we'll start with, we do have a name that was initially on our just off the list. Now it comes up to top targets. It's Ekene Ogboko. Why does he go on the list this week?
First of all, Kaylee, great job on the phonetics.
Thank you. I really practiced for that.
You nailed that one pretty well right there. He was in Athens again this weekend. I feel like Georgia continues to make him a priority. I think the main things that Ekene is looking for is he wants to be developed. He wants some stability where he knows that the situation he enters will be the situation that he's going to get for the bulk of his career. I don't think that Nnamdi, his older brother, is as major of a draw for him. I don't think Nnamdi is saying, come here, we need you, we need you, we need you. I think it's going to be his own unique fit because these two brothers are really different. Nnamdi's very serious. Ekene is probably more of a goofball, like most youngest baby childs are. So it's very interesting. He's 6'6.5", Kaylee. I've told him measured in at Georgia right at 305 pounds, so there will be no weight issues there when he kind of finished last year around 285, 290. So he's a guy that, although he has the ability to play some guard, I think right tackle is where Georgia would like to have him.
So we're going to kind of group these next 2 slides in together because there was a switch, and I think a lot of it reflects what we talked about in this show. So we'll go ahead and show you the next page here. Okay. You see, everybody remains the same. You've got Jay Lamar at 10, Carter Lucky at 9, Ryan Mosley at 8, Caden Prothro at 7, Jackson Cantwell, who's sort of been in that 3-4 spot, he goes down to number 6, but this is why. We'll show you the next page on the screen here. Him and Mark Bowman trade places, which I think is a good sign that Mark Bowman clearly had a good G-Day visit, because he was slowly dropping down that list as Texas and Oregon kind of loomed a little bit closer. So I think that gives you a good insight of just how well his G-Day experience went.
Kaylee, I know there's some very greedy recruiting enthusiasts for the University of Georgia fan base that watch our show. And I will say this. Let me give you maybe a 10,000 foot, kind of above 10,000 feet in the air view right now. I think the chances of Georgia going 4 for 5 on this top 5 are maybe as good as they've ever been.
Wow.
And obviously you're like, all right, smart guy. It's not going to be Curtis and both Bentley in this, because Bentley's name's only been in on top targets this high for maybe 3 or 4 weeks now. But Kamari Brooks was also at G-Day. Bowman was at G-Day. Jared Curtis was at his prom, rocking some red and black in his red sports car. Tyler Atkinson was at Ohio State. But as far as top targets go, I think the chances of Georgia getting 3 to 4 of those 5, I think they're greater than they've ever been.
So now we'll move on to just off the list. Not many changes, but can we get an update on the 5-star athlete Derek Cooper?
Yeah, so Cooper, he was also at Ohio State for his spring game along with Tyler Atkinson. I really feel it's going to come down to Georgia and Miami with Cooper, though. Craig Dandridge out of Cambridge was also in Athens for G-Day. Kayvon Conciaro was also there. He almost got impeded by a flying field goal. A stray. He was coming down the recruiting bleachers, Kaylee.
Catching stray.
And he caught a stray. He caught one, I believe, right on his collarbone in a little bit. And Kayvon was like, man, what am I doing from an errant field goal? But Carson Baker also recently labeled Ohio State as his leader as well. So that's a good look at JOTL right there.
All right, so moving on to our next page of just off the list. Let's focus on Minkah Fitzpatrick's younger brother, Justice. Any intention to take a visit to Georgia soon?
Yeah, I think he's going to see Georgia in May. I would look at him potentially as a scavenger hunt type guy. Kaylee, there's also Georgia somehow got another huge May 15th weekend for official visitors. We'll have to profile that in the future Before the Hedges show, but they've got another 6 or 7 guys that are going to come for a weekend in May. Interesting, Zach Ford. I asked him who were the 5 guys he wants to add to his class, and he mentioned Justice Fitzpatrick, the corner, is one of those. Malcolm Gaston out of North Augusta, South Carolina. I believe he was at Virginia Tech this past weekend, I want to say. But he has set a May the 2nd commitment date, and he is kind of consistently named Georgia as his leader.
And moving on to our next page of just off the list. So the 5-star edge, Dre Quinn, was initially on our top targets, now comes onto just off the list. Why the sudden drop?
Yeah, he's been around a little bit. I still think the most likely edges for Georgia in this class would be Dre Quinn and Kamari Brooks. But, he's just visiting a little bit more. And I felt some momentum from another guys that had to, I felt belonged in the top targets. So I wouldn't look at this as Georgia in red numbers negatively here with Quinn. I just think Georgia and Quinn are in a good spot. It's just other guys kind of have more momentum right now.
All right, and we've got one more page of just off the list for you. Now, Tamarian Watkins was one of the visitors this past weekend. How did it go for him?
Well, I think that visit went very well for Tamarian T. Watt. Again, Georgia sees him not as a safety where he's ranked, but as a linebacker. Coach Schumann is recruiting him. So I really feel like Tamarian's going to have a tough choice to make between Georgia and South Carolina in the long run eventually. And I think Georgia's going to make that a very hard choice.
So what's funny is I had a chance to be on the sidelines for maybe all of 20 seconds Saturday before the game. And I'm like kind of rushing to figure out where you and Cody are. And then all of a sudden, all the recruits walked past. And then I just looked down for a split second. And there was Tamarian. And I just wanted to be like, hey, I know who you are. And I was like, no, don't do that. But that was one of the people I did get the opportunity to just physically or visually see on Saturday. So that was cool.
He got a chance to take a picture with Kirby Smart at midfield, so he got some FaceTime, and he shared that on his social media. And there, Kaylee, always doing the right thing. The poise, class, and grace she always shows. Even as much as you wanted to say, hey, T. Watt, what's up? You checked it in.
But I took the mental note of that to talk about. So just as a heads up, no show next week because we will be on the Dog Nation cruise, but we will return back the following Wednesday, which, 2 weeks of no recruiting talk might as well be 2 years. So we're going to have a lot to talk about, so make sure to tune back in 2 weeks Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. I'm Kaylee Mansell with Jeff Sentell. This is Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger, and we'll see you 2 weeks from now.